Hey everyone, and welcome to Carrie's Garage. And on this episode, we're going to start getting some work done on the Z car and bring it back to life. So this is Z Car Revival episode 2. We're actually going to start digging into the car, start lubricating the cylinders, and start evaluating some of the stuff we need to get done. So let's go ahead and take a look at the car a little bit closer. Let's go ahead and open up the hood. Now, one of the first things that I'm going to do is get the vacuum, and we're just going to vacuum. There's been a little bit of rodent activity, which down where we live, I'm not really surprised. So I'm going to go ahead and vacuum, clean it up a little bit. Then we're going to pull the spark plugs out. I've got my special blend of two-stroke oil, some Marvel's Mystery Oil. Spray those down into the cylinders. Let them soak. I don't know if I'm going to pull the valve cover just yet, but I am definitely going to do that before we do anything else. And then I got to show you another thing we need to do on the interior. Well, we're here in the interior, and it's very red. The era of red. Not as much as the green in the Lincoln, but it's red. So one of the interesting things that my friend did many years ago is they had retrofitted this like Nissan Altima push to start, stop button. It was pretty neat, but that's actually what had failed and engaged the starter while it was running and roasted the starter. So we're going to go ahead and have to pull all this apart. Take that button, any associated wiring, the control box, everything, it's all going to have to go, and then put all the wiring back to the way it was. I already ordered a brand new ignition, lock, switch, the whole thing. So I'll go ahead and put that and get it set up just the way it was originally and get rid of all this control stuff. It was neat, but it's not necessary. And then we also have a replacement fuel pump. So we're going to see how bad the fuel system is with it sitting and some of that varnish in it. But let's go ahead and start cleaning and vacuuming up under the hood first so we can start lubricating the cylinders and go from there. All right, well, we got a bunch of stuff vacuumed out. So let's go ahead and pull some spark plugs. I already took all the plug leads off. I marked them so I wouldn't forget. Makes life just a bit easier. So there's the first plug. Let me get all the rest out. Got all the spark plugs out. So now all the spark plug holes are open. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is just spray, and start filling up the cylinder as much as we can. Start letting that lubrication sit in the cylinders. Get the rings nice and lubricated, get the upper cylinders lubricated. So when I do eventually crank it over by hand, everything will be nicely lubricated. So we're not worrying about breaking a ring or scoring the cylinders or whatnot. I don't think it would happen with this one, but it has been sitting long enough to where it is a concern. So I just want to make sure that none of that will happen. So I'll go ahead and fill all these up and see. I might remove the valve cover and just take a look and just put a little bit of oil up there too. All right, I went ahead and sprayed a bunch of the Marvels and two-stroke oil in the upper cylinders. So now I went ahead and took all the bolts off because I decided let's go ahead and take a look at it here as well. So let's go ahead and see if I can do this one-handed, which I can, which is good. All right. And I will say everything looks really good, but nonetheless, still want to spray everything down. Want to make sure the valves are lubricated, and I'll probably sit there and just tap on the valves a little bit, make sure that nothing is sticking. So the problem with this modern gas we have is When it sits and gets old, it'll varnish up and it'll start sticking valves, and it'll cause a lot of problems. I've seen some pretty impressive stuff happen from cars sitting for long periods of time because of just the gas. So yeah, go ahead and spray stuff down, make sure everything's really thoroughly lubricated. Gonna let it sit for 4 or 5 days, and then this weekend we will try and turn it over by hand. All right, now that I have everything really thoroughly sprayed down and soaked, I put the spark plugs just loosely back in by a couple of threads, mostly just to keep stuff from getting in there while it sits. And then we'll go ahead and put the valve cover back on, or at least try to. A bit harder to do one-handed. Okay. Now, also, see down there, here, let me, decided while I was here, and it was easy, went ahead and pulled the starter. Wow, that cooked itself good. Anyways, so got a new one of the, well, reman one of those on its way. Let's just go into the interior for a few minutes and see about taking some of this stuff apart and kind of see what we have to deal with here. I have a feeling, if I remember right, this plastic piece was modified to make the push button work. So I'm probably gonna have to have my friend do some looking around on eBay or some of the more collector sites and see if she can't find a good piece of replacement plastic for this. Because I can still get it going and just not have this plastic trim sitting in place. And there we go. We got the trim piece out with the button. So looking at it, looks like they entirely moved the entire mechanism. So I have a brand new replacement one of those coming. So we'll go ahead and get all of this stuff, all the plastic pieces, wiring, controls, and like that, get it back to the stock setup for the wiring. And then when I get the new ignition lock and switch and everything, hopefully I'll just be able to plug it right in, get that all put in, and I'll be able to put this guy back on even if this hole was enlarged. It might look a little weird, but it'll still work. But she might still want to find a replacement somewhere online. I know they had done some sort of work to it to clean it up, but it's sitting, it's kind of flaking a bit. But that tells me everything I need to know. Looks like the wiring will be fairly straightforward, thankfully. So we now have lubricant sitting in the upper cylinders, lubricant on the valves, checked all that, looks pretty clean. Got the starter out, vacuumed it up a bit, took that steering column plastic apart. So we're at a really good point to where this weekend, when I get the ignition switch, which we don't need yet, but it'll be nice to have, I can get that all together at least, we'll turn the engine over by hand without the spark plugs. Just slowly turn it over, make sure nothing's sticking, make sure everything is properly lubricated. And then what I'll go ahead and do is drain the oil, put in a new oil filter, put in some fresh oil, and then we'll put the new starter in, disconnect the entire fuel system so it doesn't spray. And then we'll crank the engine over a bunch of times without spark plugs, build oil pressure, get oil through all the oil galleries. And then we got to figure out what we're going to do about the fuel system. I'll probably just disconnect it right at the fuel filter, energize the relay, see if the pump even turns on. If the pump turns on, we'll try and drain as much of that bad gas out of the tank as we can, put some fresh gas in, probably with a little bit of fuel injector cleaner, and then, just kind of go from the steps there. But we'll do that a little at a time. We don't want to rush it. We don't want to mess anything up. Bringing cars that have been sitting for a long time back to life, it's a unique step for the revival of it. I really enjoy doing it. I've saved and brought back a lot of cars from the dead. So this one won't be too bad. The biggest thing I'm worried about is the fuel pump and the injectors. I think the injectors might be sticking, so we might have to order a new set of those, but we'll take a look when that time comes. But thanks so much for watching. If you're going to do these episodes in kind of smaller increments, get them up there so you guys can see the project. And a lot of people were super excited to see this project, and we'll pick up again here in a few days and get some more work done on the engine, do some of the stuff on the interior, and just move a little bit farther along. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and catch you on the next episode.